Hello everyone, I'm Anthony, the Eclectic Chef. Welcome back to my kitchen. It was the late Jeff Smith, the frugal gourmet, who used to allude in his TV show often that memories and dishes were often strongly connected. And a dish that we're going to cook for you today is strongly connected for me in that way. Passing through the grocery store the other day, and I happened to notice this. Well, it's lamb neck bones, neck of lamb. Back in the late 70s, when Sous Chef and I were first married, we were, to use the southern US idiom, we didn't have a lot of money. And I've always been fortunate that Sous Chef is very frugal. One of the dishes she used to cook for us then that was affordable was neck of lamb. In fact, it's become so ubiquitous that it's almost a joke between us today. So seeing this at the supermarket kind of pulled on that memory string. I thought, you know what, let's try and see if we can cook this. I'll sex it up a little bit in the way that the Eclectic Chef does, and we'll talk about whether this is really a budget preparation too, given what my supermarket's wanting for it, but we'll talk about that later. Now, here in the desert southwest today, it'll be 113 degrees, and I can hear the air running while I'm talking to you. So we're going to do this in my trusty Instant Pot. Taken out, but the Instant Pot doesn't leak a lot of heat out, and we can suck all the steam out through the vents when we're done with this dish. Be interested to see how this turns out with a little bit of tomato, some red wine, some herbs from our garden, and it's really great to be able to prick fresh herbs even in this heat. So we'll get into it on the cutting board with our herbs. I'll show you the label for the meat, and then hopefully we'll have a delicious neck of lamb to try in a couple of hours. So here's the package of lamb neck bones we bought. 1.5 pounds at $3.99 a pound, $6.14. That's not hugely expensive, but it doesn't feel terribly budget to me anymore. Let's take a look at what we got. So here's what we got for our $6.50 roughly. Meat departments and supermarkets will always show the cuts to the best advantage. We have some meat, decent amount I suppose for $3.99 a pound. A lot of fat, I have to skim some of that off, and some bones which will enrich this while we braise it. So let's get going with the mise en place other than the lamb, and we'll get this into the Instant Pot. So here, if you will, is our mise en place other than the lamb for our neck of lamb dish that we're going to cook in the Instant Pot. We'll go from bottom left. We have one fairly large shallot that I've chopped up very fine. I generally find that shallots give me a better depth of flavour than onions, so that's what we're using. 2 fat cloves of garlic, we'll crush these. 1 generous teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper, a sprig of oregano from the garden, a sprig of rosemary from the garden, a nice juicy bay leaf from the garden. I didn't miss this, I'll come back. No salt added, diced organic tomatoes. I'll probably use the flesh, not the juice to start with. I want to keep the juices down in this dish, but we'll see how this works out. Zest of 1 lemon, juice of half a lemon. This is going to be polite, a fairly rich dish, given the amount of fat on those neck bones. So we want something to cut that down. So I'm also adding 3 crushed juniper berries. Now, 1 teaspoon, generous teaspoon of general purpose flour, which we're going to form into a roux while we cook up or brown the neck of lamb pieces in the Instant Pot on saute function. Instant Pots are great for many, many things. Thickening sauces, they're not. And I really don't like adding cornstarch slurry at the end. It leaves a less than optimal mouthfeel. In my opinion, I don't like how it changes the colour of sauces, so we'll try tomato paste at the end, but adding a little flour now so it will cook through and not taste floury at the end is probably going to be a good plan. So let's get this all into the Instant Pot and I'll show you what it's like before we put the lid on. So here's our lamb, tomato, all the herbs, shallot, the flavourings we showed you. I did add a cup of red wine, actually in this case Kirkland Chianti Classico. I also added a little splash of red boat fish sauce and a splash of brandy to give it a little extra depth of flavour. Now, you'll know that the eclectic chef tends to use Asian ingredients with European ones. Dashi, for example, would have been a not unusual addition for me here, or a spisa kombu, but I've decided to go wholly European with this dish. Now you might say, well, what was the red boat doing in there then? To which my answer is, well, that's liquamen, Roman fish sauce. So we're wholly European on this dish. I'm going to turn it to high in the Instant Pot pressure, put the lid on and leave it for an hour because I want the meat absolutely just falling off the bones of this neck of lamb. So we'll see you in an hour. So here are our pieces of lamb neck after they've been cooked for an hour, and we've left them for natural release. Let the fat rise to the top. We'll take these pieces of meat out, get the meat off the bone, and then see what we're going to do with the sauce. Smells good though, I have to say. So here's our meat from the lamb neck bones after we've pulled away the bones and cut off any of the obviously large chunks of fat. This is still a very rich dish in terms of high fat, as we'll see when we look at the sauce in a minute. So it's going to be a sparing serving, but I've tasted a couple of pieces, very tender and quite tasty. Not as lamby actually as you might think. And here's the sauce, cooking liquid after we've removed the meat. Quite a good bit of fat lying on the surface of this. What I think I'm going to do is put an immersion blender in here to blend all the tomato, shallot. Most of the herbs have boiled off the stalks, remove the stalks, and then we'll leave it in a bowl and let the fat rise off. See if we can lift enough off just to make a nice sauce for serving tonight over some rice. And then we're going to keep this because I have a use in mind for it, which we'll talk about on another video. And here is the sauce of cooking liquid after I've strained off 2 ladlefuls of fat from the top. Fairly simple to do. Just push the ladle down very gently and let the fat which has risen to the surface flow into the ladle and pour it off. Immersion blended this after we'd removed as much fat as we could. There'll be some left. I'm going to use maybe a 1/4 cup of this sauce over the meat on top of a rice pilaf. The meat's not dry, so it actually doesn't need a lot of sauce. It will just add a nice bit of flavour. Then I'm going to reserve the rest in the fridge, and I have an idea of a use for this, some ground lamb perhaps, but we'll talk about that on another day. I'll show you this when this is all plated up. So here's our plated neck of lamb on top of a brown rice pilaf with celery, carrot, green onion, garlic, and some finely chopped shiitakes. Threw a sheet of kombu over the rice when we cooked it, but we had some last night. This is today's to-do-over. I shared some of this lamb with the sous chef, who affirmed that it tasted very, very well. You saw we didn't get a great lot off of those 2 pieces of lamb neck bones, but it's very rich, so there's a 2-serving portion. I'll show you what this looks like when I've put the vegetables around it, just very quickly. And here we go, guys. This is how a very functional meal looks. That's why we use bowls. They serve up and work well for serving at the home table when we're not entertaining. So we've added some broccoli and a cabbage medley. What does that mean? It's green cabbage with carrot, celery, a little bit of green onion and some raisins. Very, very tasty. Everything is wholesome here. By the way, there's no salt added to anything here. Little fatty maybe, but I have reduced the fat out of the lamb sauce as much as I can by skimming as much off. With that, thank you so much for watching. If you found this interesting, please like and subscribe. It really does help the channel. And as always, let's all have a great day in our kitchens.